This is a video from Sid Dwyer. I just came across it. We need to talk about Critical's misinformation problem, Penguin Zero. So I guess it's Moistcritikal. It's from a couple months ago, but I'm curious. I'm not sure if other people have talked about it. I don't remember anybody saying a word about this video, so I'm just kind of curious. Let's see what they have to say. Let's get this party started.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sid. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sid_Dwyer. And in today's video, I want to talk about the YouTuber and Twitch streamer Penguin Z0, also known as Moistcritikal, also known as Charlie. And I firstly,
is it Penguin Z0 or is it Penguins? Huh? I don't know. Okay.
Just want to say that I like Charlie's content. If you're after some light-hearted, humorous content, then Charlie's your man. But even though I like his videos, I can't ignore the fact that I have noticed an
This guy looks a little bit like Moistcritikal. A little bit. Like if he was, you know, if he was a little like... Nah, that's not an insult. He looks like kind of the gay version of Moistcritikal. But not in a bad way. There's nothing wrong with that. So...
responsible pattern appear in some of his commentary content. Some people may think that there are bigger fish for me to fry than this topic, but one of the biggest compliments that I get on my channel is that I talk about things that not many people have talked about or nobody is talking about. So yeah, while I could make a video on more problematic people like Nikocado, Avocado, and Def Noodles, I'm going to make a video on something that isn't really being talked about. And something that I want to make sure you'll know is that this video is not a hit piece on Charlie by any means. This is just outlining a problem that I've seen with Charlie's content. The main issue revolves around him doing not much research for his commentary videos, which has resulted in him misreporting on situations pretty badly. And this isn't a case of me having so much of an...
Well, how important are the situations? You know, we've all been there. How much does the situation matter? I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Issue with it, that I unsubscribe and dislike his videos and leave hate comments. I can still enjoy some of his content, even though I don't agree with how he's gone about some things. But I think at the end of the day, for someone who has 11 million subscribers, if he's going to provide commentary on a situation, then he needs to do his research beforehand. Especially considering when it is expected that when Charlie makes a video about somebody, his fans will go and harass them. Even though for the most part his videos are just light-hearted comedy, his fans will still go and attack them. And I know that he has made a couple of videos condemning his fans for doing this in the past.
I don't know how much more clear I can be when I say I can't stand it when people harass or insult someone or some community I make a video joking about.
But at the end of the day, regardless of whether he likes it or not, it still happens and he could definitely do more to prevent it. Also, I know it's not the majority of Charlie's fans who go and leave hate comments on the people who he makes videos about. Like I said, I enjoy some of Charlie's videos and I don't go leave hate comments. But there's enough of Charlie's fans who do that, they make it into an issue. And two big examples of Charlie making videos on a YouTuber and then his fans attacking them are with Nikocado, Avocado, and Def Noodles. I know two very hated members of the YouTube community. You may think that these people deserve the hate that they get from Charlie's fans and just click off the video. But when you hate on them based on misinformation that Charlie often just literally creates out of thin air, that's when it's an issue. Because the videos that Charlie made on Def Noodles and Nikocado Avocado are filled with contradictions, hypocrisy,
he's gonna get him,
and it's pretty clear that close to no research was done prior to making the video. Other than
he's about to get him, guys. Let's see all the misinformation. You know, I don't know if there's actually misinformation. But what I will say is that, like, yeah, when there's a character that nobody really cares about in like a negative way, like if nobody likes that person, it doesn't really matter what you say. People are just going to eat it up. And they won't really fact check it or anything. People don't really care. That's how the reality of the situation.
And checking out a few tweets. I think if Charlie did his research, kept things factual, and gave a warning at the start or the end of his videos to not go and send hate to the people who he was making a video about, then I think that's when we would notice some kind of change. I don't like...
Well, I guess he could do that. It's not it's a motorcycle. A guy with a huge cock is driving around outside blaring his motorcycle, guys. Yeah, I guess you could do that. I feel like there's some like more reasonable expectations. I don't think that you necessarily have to always be like, don't harass people, blah, 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 blah. You know, I guess you could. So I guess it's not a bad idea. Let's continue.
Like preaching about what someone can do to improve, because what the hell do I know? But I do think that what I just mentioned is a good start. Another thing that I want to touch on is how Charlie is held to a completely different standard. I know he doesn't claim it to be some kind of reputable news source, but at the end of the day, he does provide commentary to past and current events and broadcast them to his 11 million subscribers. And you would think that him providing information to such a large audience, he would take a little bit more due diligence. And for as relatively short as his videos are, he does get quite a bit of information wrong in them. And even though he literally just makes false things up sometimes, he's just given a pass that many other commentaries will never be afforded. But he has had to...
Well, let's get into the accusations. You know what I mean?
apologize multiple times in the past for misrepresenting situations, to the point that when it came to him misrepresenting the Def Noodles situation, people were saying that he usually comes out with an apology. These are the comments that I saw talking about what Charlie does.
I guarantee you that Charlie's going to come out and admit its fault like he usually does
when there's a situation that he needs to apologize in. So it seems like his fans are aware that he has some kind of rhythm when it comes to him apologizing to things. And is that not a red flag to anybody? I feel like his fans shouldn't know that. If he has to apologize...
Not really. I mean, listen, bro, again, like I've been talking about this a lot, is people do make mistakes very often in like their day-to-day life, but they're not really aware of what they're doing. They don't like hyper specifically or critically think about the bad things that they may or may not be doing, or the less than stellar things, we'll say. It's just not active in their mind. Like when you're drifting through work and you're on autopilot, people aren't like super like, oh shit, you know? So, I mean, it's somewhat normal to make mistakes, but it depends on how bad the mistake is, or whether you should, you know, do or don't have to like apologize for it. Because sometimes it's like a silly, dumb mistake that's like not worth apologizing for.
That much to the point where his fans recognize some kind of pattern, then there's obviously an issue there, and no other creator would be able to get away with that. To continually get things wrong and then to continually
just
apologize. Like maybe just do the research beforehand so you don't have to get things wrong and then apologize for them. I once saw a commentary channel criticize another commentary channel for not doing adequate research.
And because this is the tea community and nobody does research of their own, I know it takes you only 30 minutes to make a 30-minute video, but the rest of us actually put effort and research into our shit. It
That's me, baby.
takes time.
But then this exact same guy in a different video will be frothing at the mouth at how great of a guy Charlie is, when Charlie is guilty of doing the exact same thing as that other YouTuber.
It's no secret Critical is one of my favorite YouTubers.
So I think it is a pretty problematic double standard.
He called you out, Willie McIntyre. He got you.
This guy can bash on somebody for not doing enough research and then turn a blind eye for Charlie. Okay, so now it's time to get into some of the examples of Charlie spreading misinformation. And I'm going to first do that by going over the 3 videos that he made about Def Noodles. So the first video that he makes about Def Noodles is in relation to the comedy show that Def Noodles did. He starts off this video by saying that he's unfamiliar with Def and that he's only seen a few things about him on Twitter. So Charlie starts watching the roast and Def is introducing it and says that there's some really awesome comedians there. But Charlie says, scratch what Def said, this is what it actually is.
That's not exactly the format. What he did is he assembled a few people who said they've told a joke before in their life, and he had them roast each other.
Yes, they did suck that night. It was a very cringy, embarrassing night for them.
Yeah, the audience also was kind of against them, so of course they're going to suck.
But they were all seasoned comedians, whether you believe that or not. Then he follows that up.
Listen, I wouldn't call that misinformation. They were not very good. If they were seasoned comedians, they're as seasoned as a white person's meal. I'm relatable. I could invite me to the cookout. But yeah, I don't really see that as a lie. If they were seasoned, maybe they did a lot of stuff. They weren't good. That's not really I wouldn't say that they were like seasoned. Maybe they've done a lot of comedy shows, but they weren't really good. So that one doesn't really matter to me.
With the statement that none of them knew each other.
Nobody knew each other. Literally nobody. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry, the volume's going to be really low because it's so poorly put together. So all they can do is roast each other's appearance because they don't know they don't know them. They're random people that he got together and told them to roast each other.
And that is just completely untrue.
So who cares? Not for nothing, but like their jokes of each other were terrible. So he's speaking to the fact that they don't know each other particularly well. When you do a good roast, you like plan beforehand all the jokes you're going to say, but their jokes were so like, they were just so shallow that's why he said that. So it's not that big of a deal. Okay.
This wasn't just a random group of strangers. They all either knew each other or knew of each other. Yes, Charlie was actually... Knowing
of somebody isn't knowing them. Come on. Who's the one contradicting whom?
Actually correct in saying that these two people hadn't met before, but to assume that everybody there hadn't met before is just completely inaccurate.
Well, I mean, just to paint a picture, everybody here knew each other, right? Like they were either friends with Steven or friends with Corey or friends with somebody, and everybody kind of pulled together.
So everybody was like a friend of a friend. It doesn't mean that they all know each other, like in any real capacity. Okay, whatever.
I do get that if you weren't keeping up with Def's podcast, then you probably wouldn't know that all but a couple of these people hadn't met before, and
it's one of those things where you dress for the job you want. If they knew each other, they would have acted like it. They didn't, based on like what's happening there. So
really wouldn't have expected Charlie to know that. But the fact that he says that nobody there knew each other,
it's not that big of a deal.
Literally just doesn't know if that's true or not. Is just spreading misinformation in its purest form. And he uses that information that he made up out of thin air to say that that is why the roast is so awful. Like, he repeats it multiple times throughout the video.
Yeah, I can see where he gets it from.
True. But this is something that he completely made up.
This is a terrible format. You can't roast someone you don't know. Like, so he not only got people that don't know each other, so can't roast each other.
And then Def made a response video to Charlie's video titled, "My Apology to Moistcritikal for First Super Roast Battles." And just take a look at the intro to his video.
Folks, today's video is a little bit different than usual. I think it's about time that I address the new allegations against me. It feels like it's only been a few days since...
Hopefully we can all agree that that obviously looks like a joke. Like, he's just making a joke apology video. And I mean, the video isn't really even an apology video. It's just filled with a bunch of things that Def Noodles thinks are jokes. And at this point in time, Def is pushing the whole notion that his content is all just satirical. You know, hence the reason why he's hosting comedy shows. But because Charlie didn't do any research on Def, he thought that Def was legitimately upset and was genuinely apologizing. So then Charlie made a video titled, "My Response..."
So, like, I actually watched a bit of that. I actually watched a lot of that, and I never posted it because it was so fucking dumb and boring. Def Noodles has this way that he interacts with content where he pretends he's not upset while being upset and pretends that everything's a joke. So, yeah, he was actually upset. I just never posted it. If I look back on my laptop, because I think this is when I was on vacation in Disney, I could probably find it, to be honest with you. Maybe. I don't know if I actually have it, but... yeah, he was upset, and he plays this game where everything's a joke, and he doesn't have real feelings, but he actually is upset about stuff. That's the reality, but okay.
Response to the drama, which was a response to Def's apology video. Immediately in the intro, he continues to peddle that nobody there knew each other and it was everyone's first time on stage.
Yesterday I posted this video, and it's me talking about a YouTuber event that was hosted where it was a roast battle, but there was no preparation. Everyone was a stranger. I'm also pretty sure it was everyone's first time on stage, so it just became this giant, unhinged, festering petri dish of concentrated cringe.
But other than that, the biggest thing that stood out was the shift in tone. There is such a vast difference between the tone in Def Noodles' video and Charlie's video.
Here we are once again, addressing more allegations. I mean,
this is such a weird way of starting the video because I didn't make any allegations against him. I made jokes about the event and talked about it.
He completely missed the point.
No, the point is that Def Noodles was clickbaiting that video, like by saying that there are allegations against him. It's not that deep. I don't know. You don't even have to hate Def Noodles for that. I'm just saying, like, he didn't miss any point. Def at that point, like, he was struggling. You know, listen, we've all been there, struggling with relevancy, right? So, like, he was kind of, like, clickbaiting some stuff and hate farming a little bit. And, you know, that's what he was doing there. That's pretty much it. So...
He is taking Def's video completely seriously.
It is meant to be... Well,
I think it's important to note...
It's not meant to be taken... This guy maybe just doesn't understand what he's watching. So, this is really interesting. This is the misinformation? Okay. Okay. I mean, listen, God bless you for not understanding jokes or Def Noodles' failed attempt at them, but okay, I wouldn't have made this video, personally, but okay.
That this entire 10-minute video is sarcastic. The entire 10 minutes is spent in full sarcastic monologue like it's a high school drama club exercise. And I really don't see why he would think that's a good idea.
He is joking. Yes, it is not funny by any means, but it is obviously a joke. This is not...
He just said it. He said the word sarcastic usually implies that it's a joke. Like, it's very clear that Charlie is understanding. It's a pure, like, it's a sarcastic, like, joke, but he... There's hurt behind those words, Sid. Okay? It's time for us to focus on men's mental health. There's pain behind those words, brother. We have to listen to the cries of Def Noodles. He's sad, he's broken, he's lonely. Okay? All right? We cannot just ignore that. Can't just ignore it. We got to understand. Sad.
Not a genuine apology. If Charlie looked into Def's content just a little bit, he would know that for the last month, Def has been making these joke apologies. Okay. It's super easy to miss the point with one of Def's jokes, but it was...
You're the... What are you talking about? He knows that it... What? I'm so confused what's happening right now. Does this guy actually... okay.
Very obvious that his apology was a joke, even if you didn't know that he's been doing it as a thing. So that is Charlie just completely misrepresenting the situation because he didn't do his research beforehand. And then Def hosts another...
What research would he do beforehand? Even if Def Noodles was so next level that Charlie fell for the joke, your criticism isn't that he didn't do research. Your criticism would be that he missed the joke. You're not even like you don't even accurately portraying what's happening here. It's a very different criticism. There's no misinformation in this case. It's just that he would have missed the joke, which I don't think that he did. It's pretty easy to see that. Like, Def Noodle says things are jokes when he's actually serious, and he plays them off or tries to play them off as jokes while he cries right after the video's over. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Another comedy show that Charlie does a reaction video to. And most of you are probably familiar with this show because it was the show where Def Noodles pushed a guy named Salvo Pancakes off the stage. And in Charlie's reaction video, he says that he doesn't know the guy involved and he doesn't know anything leading up to it. And he actually does come under fire for spreading misinformation about Salvo Pancakes in this video. Charlie essentially says that this guy, Salvo Pancakes, only showed up to harass people and cause commotion. And
that is mostly true, yeah. My understanding is he might have been invited, like there was like a post Def Noodles put that's like, oh, it's Keemstar's employee or whatever. So he might have actually been invited, but he acted in a way to like troll. And it was funny, let's be real, but like he was like, fuck Def Noodles, the first thing he did to go on stage, fuck Def Noodles, constantly riling up the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. If you're invited to be like I think he was invited to be the main event person, you would have acted like that. So it's reasonable for somebody to get that idea from them. Unless Def Noodles was just playing a really stupid joke by playing he was invited. He may have been. It's not that big of an issue though, but okay.
Isn't fully true. Def Noodles and Salvo did have an arrangement that Salvo would show up and they would do a roast together at this event. But in spite of the arrangement, causing chaos is pretty much all Salvo did. As soon as Salvo enters the room, he immediately tries to get backstage without permission. Yes, he may have felt entitled to go backstage because he was a part of the roast, but if he had watched the first...
Was he trying to get backstage, or did he just go on there and just start chanting? I don't think that that's true. I feel like the first thing he did was just start getting on stage. Whatever, it really doesn't matter.
First roast, he would know that a lot of the comedians were residing in the audience and walked to the stage from the audience. So even they weren't all backstage. So it shouldn't have been unusual for him to be denied access to the backstage area. But he causes a scene anyway. At one point, he gets on stage and gets people to chant Red Bar, which is the title to the podcast that he is a part of. So yeah, he does cause a commotion. And this causes Def to get physical and push Salvo off the stage. And yes, I do agree with the consensus here. That was totally unacceptable. But in spite of everything, the show does go on, and Salvo is eventually given a mic. He starts chanting F Def Noodles, which is something that Def even joined in on. And then Salvo talks about doing some kind of...
Probably would have been funnier if he actually showed up with some jokes, but...
hour-long monologue on Def.
I just want to give Salvo a chance to get everything he's got to get out of his chest, right? So yeah, feel free. Right ahead. All right, Salvo, what do you think? On three. Fuck Def Noodles. Def Noodles. Def Noodles. Def Noodles. Def Noodles. Def Noodles. Really? Right when I join in. I'm not gonna stand up here like every other hack comedian LARPer that is playing the Joe Rogan experience with the fake Joe Rogan, get on the podcast, act like they're real comedians. I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna monologue for about an hour about how pathetic this grown man really is.
So Salvo obviously wasn't there to do a roast. They did take the mic off him after a couple of minutes, but the fact that they even gave it to him to begin with when he was doing nothing but derail the event, and even that is still pretty reasonable in my opinion. So yeah, since Charlie's take on the situation was basically that Salvo was just some random guy that showed up to cause a scene, Salvo did not like that, considering there was some kind of arrangement with Def beforehand.
But you don't do any research, you don't look into it, you don't really even care, and it becomes a problem when you put it out and then people think that I went there to harass and to straight up cause a commotion. Wow, that truly doesn't really bother me that people think that. It just goes to show you how lazy you are and about how you really don't really think about the content that you're making, and you rather put on a clean white shirt and you brush your hair, you put on a snapback, you press record, and you mumble and you monotone through another video, leaving everything to be desired.
So then Charlie took back what he said about Salvo.
But the part where I made my oops-a-daisy is when I was briefly talking about what Salvo's intentions possibly were with being there, and I was basing this off a series of tweets from audience members that were talking about what he was saying.
Even though most of what he said was pretty accurate. So Charlie made a video about a situation that he was uninformed about, got called out for it, and then sided with the people who called him out. Then he did some revisionism, and now has completely changed the narrative of what happened in people's minds, when his original take was actually closer to the truth. Yes, Charlie.
Okay, I mean, that's a fair criticism. Okay, I think that's fair. He did overcorrect in that situation. He could have been like, oh yeah, he was apparently invited. That's the only thing that he really got wrong, but he did overcorrect. Sure. That's your criticism. That's fair. Okay.
He was wrong that Salvo had just rocked up to the event, but he was pretty accurate in saying what Salvo was actually doing there. And I just want to quickly talk about the video where Charlie redacts what he said about Salvo, because in that video he says that the reason why he assumed that Salvo was just a random audience member was because that is what happened in the first roast.
And I take full responsibility for not researching this far enough. I just made the assumption that it was like the first super roast battle where it was just random people that Def Noodles lured in here.
Again, the people in the original roast were not just random people that Def lured off the street. So this is just another issue with him spreading misinformation. He's literally creating more misinformation based off another piece of misinformation. Like, there is a problem there. Like, he literally made up in his own head that nobody at the first roast knew each other. And then he used that information to assume that...
Again, in his defense, I mean, they acted like they didn't know each other. Their jokes were not great. You'd think that if you knew somebody, you'd probably have some better roasting material than like, oh, you look gay, or whatever the fuck they were saying.
That was all that Salvo was, just another random person. Like, all of this could have been avoided if he didn't make something up at the start. Also, in Charlie's video about the second comedy show, he did reference a tweet and said that if that tweet is to be believed, then this is what happened.
So if this account is to be believed...
Which is far better than him telling a whole bunch of mistruths with conviction as if it were the truth. But I can see why Salvo was mad about that, since Charlie based half of his video off this tweet that wasn't fully true, when he could have just done a little bit of research to find out what the truth was. And I just want to make it very clear, if I haven't already, that I am not excusing anything that Def has done. I think we can all agree that Def has done some pretty shit things, but it's also not okay for somebody to completely make something up out of thin air about somebody. So anyways, now moving on from that situation and onto another situation that Charlie covered on another equally as hated person.
Nicholas Ocado, because I can't say Nick Ocado. You see why? I can't say, I have to say Nicholas Ocado Avocado. All right, these were a little pearl clutchy for the most part, but okay.
Charlie made a video.
Not really worth criticizing. I mean, like, you're showing, I mean, laugh for nothing. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got, because it's not really that much or that big of a deal, but all right.
Video on the YouTuber Nick Ocado Avocado titled, "This YouTuber is slowly killing himself for views." I'm not here to say whether or not I think Nick is killing himself for views.
Well,
look, Charlie may very well be onto something. I think he started...
I mean, he is. It's not good to be, like, that fat, and it's not... did somebody pull this? I didn't want to pull that. Fuck. Okay, good. We actually got it. Yeah, man. It's sad, but he's feeding into it. Literally. I got him. He's feeding into it, certainly. So, but yeah, man. That is what's going on. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, it's not going to be that overweight. He's eating fast food constantly. There's no way to be healthy doing that. It's not good for you. And, you know, he's a funny meme, but it's true.
Started off with a good premise that in a one-sentence title may ring true, but then it fell short when he started to make things up. Much like the Def Noodles situation, this turned into a whole saga, once again filled with misinformation, some really questionable stuff on Charlie's part, and a whole bunch of contradictions. Right. So let's get started. One claim that Charlie made in his video about Nick was that Nick now needed a full-time nurse to look after him.
I think he also claimed to now have to have a full-time nurse in order for him to just engage in day-to-day activities.
Not true, and Nick called this out, and then Charlie in his follow-up video said that he saw a tweet of somebody saying that Nick had a nurse.
Okay.
He says that I'm incorrect about, like, the nurse, like the full-time nurse to take care of him, and that's entirely possible. So sometimes I'll go to Twitter to read threads about Nikado Avocado to be kept up to date, and I recalled reading about a nurse that had to be on standby in order to make sure that he was able to go about his activities.
So the Nick situation happened before the Def Noodles situation, so this was not the last time he incorrectly used a tweet as a source. So he got things wrong because...
All right, yeah, don't do that, Charlie. I don't know. I don't let that that big of a deal, but okay.
He was using Twitter as his source. He did it in this situation, and then he later did it again in the Def Noodles situation. So perhaps he should be fact-checking the stuff that he gets from Twitter before including it in the video. Yes, in the Def Noodles situation, he did say if this account is to be believed, but in this situation, he just completely believed it as fact, and then said it in a video. Something that I noticed on a video about Charlie was a comment saying that they're glad that people aren't coming at Charlie wanting to cancel him on Twitter. And I agree, I'm glad too. I don't think cancel culture achieves anything. But what I think is interesting is that some of his fans obviously don't agree with this Twitter hate mob mentality, yet Charlie is directly getting some information for his videos from these Twitter hate mobs. That was just another little double standard that I noticed. If you don't like Twitter hate mobs, then I can't imagine you would approve of somebody who gets their information from Twitter hate mobs. So the next piece of information that I want to bring up is that Charlie says that Nick broke...
I get... This guy seriously just instantly died. I guess I get what he's saying there, because he's just getting unverified information on Twitter from people who clearly are not telling the truth. So that would be considered a Twitter hate mob. I suppose you can make that argument. Okay.
his ribs as a result of his weight gain.
He claims that the weight of his body has now broken a few of his ribs, which now has him bedridden.
Nick broke his ribs from violently coughing as a side effect from the COVID-19 vaccine. But I will say that Nick did make it pretty confusing at the start. He did say that his broken ribs were as a result of his obesity and the coughing.
It must be a combination of lots of coughing for the past 2 months because of my reaction to the shot, and my diet and my weight. Coughing excessively for over 2.5 months, and my obesity, all 350 pounds of force.
But after those videos, in a later video, he did clarify that his broken ribs had nothing to do with his weight.
And people.
Well, so then why is Charlie at fault for that? If he made it seem like Nick constantly plays up the character of being the chunky boy, which is fine, do your thing. But then, like, obviously, our biggest criticism on this one is don't take him at face value for what he says.
People say to me, oh, well, your weight is one of the reasons why. My weight is irrelevant to this situation. It really is.
Maybe.
The blunt force trauma was expelled, not impelled. When I coughed, my lungs expanded. I've been coughing for 2 months straight, violently, bent over. Has nothing to do with the fat around it. If it were the other case around, the fat would have been pushing in if you're trying to make a case.
I almost wasn't going to include that in this video because I do get it's pretty hard to keep up with Nick. It is no secret that he does lie a lot. I once brought up in a video that Nick acting outlandish paid off because he owns a multi-million-dollar luxury apartment.
Yeah.
But as I came to find out, that apartment wasn't one that he owned, and it was just one that he was staying at for a holiday. Even though he made a very convincing house tour video. And that was something that he had done on his channel before. He would stay at some kind of luxury Airbnb or hotel and do a house tour. And very convincingly...
you gotta stop. There's no way Nick doesn't have a lot of money. You see the views he gets. He makes fucking tons of money from his shit. If he doesn't, then I have no idea how. He's just a bad businessman. But okay. I mean, Nick is just he's just showing us that Riz. You know, it's fake Riz. He's just showing us status symbols, but he's showing us that Riz, baby.
act as if it was his actual home. So yeah, I totally get that it is hard to keep up with everything that Nick says. But the difference...
Okay, then why would you say that that was misinformation then? If Nick was the one that gave out disinformation, so why is that like Charlie's responsibility? I don't understand.
Between the detail that I got wrong and the detail that Charlie got wrong is that his detail wasn't just a throwaway comment. It wouldn't matter at all if I took what I said out of my video. The reason why Charlie decided to chime in with what was going on in Nick's life was because Nick started uploading these videos titled Disabled Mukbangs, because Nick became temporarily disabled when he broke his ribs. Like with Def Noodle.
It was definitely sensationalized. Like, it's not a real, like, the idea of it is to try to make you think that like he's legitimately disabled. It's clickbaity. So Moistcritikal weighed in on it. Okay. And then Nick ate it up. He liked it. The reason I know he liked it is because he kept doing back and forth with him. So that was like mutually beneficial for them. So, okay.
How all of Charlie's opinions...
I don't know what Riz means. Yes, I do. I have a ton of Riz. I have a lot of Riz. I have a lot of my Bitcoin in Riz. Rizcoin. What are you talking about? I don't know what fucking Riz is.
Hinged on the fact that he thought that nobody there knew each other. In Nick's situation, Charlie thinks that Nick is killing himself because he thinks that his weight gain caused Nick's ribs.
No, I think it's because he's literally killing himself with all the food that he's eating so unhealthy. I'm fat. Like, it's not good for you. It's really bad for you. And not only that, but Nick is eating really unhealthily because he's doing fast food mukbangs, which are full of like preservatives and other disgusting addictive substances that are like really bad for you that the FDA doesn't correctly monitor. So like, that's why. That isn't the entire video wasn't based off of he hurt his ribs because he's fat. The entire video. And I remember watching, so I reviewed this drama too. It's the videos about how he ate so much that he like, yeah, man, it's like not the same thing. It's okay.
To break, which according to Nick's current account, which was available when Charlie made his video, his weight gain did not cause his ribs to break. And then in Charlie's follow-up video to Nick, he suggests that Nick doesn't have broken ribs altogether.
Say congratulations.
Yeah, because he was jumping around. I remember that. Nick was like jumping around afterwards, so it's kind of unlikely that your ribs are broken if you're jumping around.
To Nick, it looks like his broken ribs are healing pretty well because he starts this video by stomping into the room.
Yes.
And I also checked his TikTok. He's been going kind of hard, so it looks like his broken ribs seem to be doing better now.
That's good. Bro, if your ribs are broken, I don't think that you'd be interacting like this. I'm no doctor, but I'm a doctor. So no, I'm not a doctor, but I mean, there's no way. If my ribs are broken, I feel like you would not be stomping around your room like a performative fucking nutcase, you know? You'd be like, oh man, I'm in so much significant pain. I'm hurting. Doctor, I'm hurting. Please help me. You know, that's what I would say.
Yes, he doesn't outright say that Nick is lying, but he obviously implies it. So Nick didn't break his ribs as a result of his weight gain.
I guess he implies it. He's just saying that he's doing better. I feel like you're a little pearl clutchy on this one, brother.
Or they possibly may not
You
even
don't
be
have
broken
any
to
ribs,
begin with, in
sir.
Charlie's opinion. So regardless of what happened, the point that Charlie tries to make that his weight gain impacted his ribs is just redundant. Also, the sleep apnea machine.
If it was redundant, that mean it would be true. He just consistently says the same thing. So you're saying it's not true. It's not. I know I'm nitpicking at this point, but so is he. So we might as well just fucking go back and forth with the nitpick.
That Nick uses in his disabled mukbang videos is a sleep apnea machine that he's had since he's a kid, not as a result of his weight gain, which is something that Charlie also mentions in his video.
And he also has been diagnosed with sleep apnea, I believe.
Are you really prepared to go on your channel and tell the world that I developed sleep apnea this week? I've had this since I was a kid.
Okay. Well, being overweight isn't helping. I'm just telling you. I'm just being real. I'm just giving you guys the riz. It's not good to be. It'll lead to having sleep apnea as well. So it's possible that he's exacerbating the issue with his sleep apnea because of that. Dude, come on. There was one left. We had a 1% left, and they had to move on.
Some people, it's hereditary, who are underweight or normal weight. It's all about the tubing. It's all about snoring.
Incredible.
Do you know how many thin people snore? It's sometimes genetic. Yes.
Could be,
your
yeah,
weight can make it worse. Your weight could add.
It was crazy. Apparently, like Nicholas Ocado used to be like skinny. He used to be very skinny, and he used to be like vegan to the point where like the point where it was also unhealthy for him. So it seems like he's always struggled with some kind of eating issue. You know,
Extra pressure to the pipes. But I've had this machine since I was a kid when I was a healthy weight. It's just something I have to live with.
So all but one.
Which I don't know if it's true because I remember him talking about. So I don't remember the specifics, but he talked about something to do with how these guys are not organizing particularly well. He talked about something to do with like how like he was eating like a vegan diet and it wasn't getting enough for nutrition. So it's not really a healthy. I mean, I guess it's not really a healthy weight at that point, right? It's what the fuck.
One reason that Nick is supposedly killing himself can be debunked. So all that's left to indicate that Nick is apparently killing himself for views is the rate at which he eats junk food. In Charlie's follow-up video, when that is the only point left to make, he elaborates on it a little bit further, saying that Nick has an eating disorder, which is also completely made up. He says that because Nick went from small to big, there's an eating disorder present.
So listen, there's no diagnosed eating disorder, but as a fat person, I'm 30-something years old. It's okay. You can be healthy while overweight, but it's exceedingly difficult, right? It's possible that you're really overweight, and let's say you're consistently going to the doctors, and they're like, your health's okay. That's good. That means you're healthy and overweight, but it's still something you should always try to like get down a little bit, because especially for men, apparently, being overweight. Because I was talking to somebody that. Apparently men, they store fat differently and it like puts pressure on their organs in some capacity. I don't remember the specifics, but either way, you should always try to lose weight. But you can be healthy. The thing is that like the biggest way that you'd only be able to do that if you're eating like really solid foods. Nick like almost daily or very consistently eats fast food. It's incredibly unhealthy. And the problem is that you have thin people talking about this you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I will tell you that at my weight, which is comparable to Nick Ocado's, I think I weigh less than him. That eating poorly, eating fast food, having like going out in McDonald's will cause my toes to tingle. At his weight, this is why I try to stay away from it. Try to eat like healthier. I try to like, this morning for breakfast, I forget what I had. I had like broccoli and like this leftover beef stew that we made. You don't understand. But like for me, this motherfucker's unhealthy. It's not good. He's most likely very unhealthy. He's eating shit constantly. There's just no way. And he can do whatever he wants, but like that's what he's monetizing his views off of. That's what Charlie's talking about. I don't like the this is the part of like the health at any size narrative I don't like because it's disconnected. There's no like actual understanding of it. It's like, no, dude, like you have to do a lot. You have to do a lot to be fat and healthy. Okay, you're still eating more than your body needs, which is difficult to do when you're eating well because like if you're eating nutrient dense food, then you wouldn't have the problem as much. You would be fuller faster. That's the problem. So, oh fuck, I'm gonna get my fucking shit pushed so hard. Yeah.
I showed these photos because it shows a complete transformation from one body type to another, and it shows that there is still an eating disorder present, because it feels like his audience has reinforced his eating disorder, which is taking a negative effect on his overall health.
Nick has talked about having an eating disorder during his vegan days, but he hasn't said anything about having an eating disorder.
And you just called that its healthy weight, just so you know. So like even you're acknowledging that it's not healthy. Like if you want to talk about inconsistencies in the video, like how is yours not inconsistent? Wow, these people are not actually doing what they're supposed to do. Holy fuck.
Currently
have it on camera. He's saying that I have an eating disorder and I still have... Who are you? Again, the high and mighty, all-righteous, all-knowing individual. How do you know if I have an eating disorder? Based on the fact that I do mukbangs? Are you prepared to say that every other mukbanger who posts every day also has an eating disorder?
In his follow-up video on Nick, he condemns his fans who left hate comments on Nick's videos and says that that's not going to help Nick.
You're not some kind of internet vigilante fighting for justice. That angry comment you left on Nick's video isn't going to help him.
But making a video about him, making jokes about him, isn't going to help him either. If he actually wanted to help him, where's the call to action to show him some support? Something that I also found...
What does that look like to you? I mean, like at the end of the day, it's Nick is like hate farming people, so... really as deep as it goes. But whatever. Okay, sure.
Interesting was that when Nick responded to Charlie's original video on him, he questions who Charlie is.
Who is this person?
And then Charlie responded to that.
And asking, who is this? Who are you? Does anyone know this person? I don't expect to go into a room and all of a sudden everything goes quiet as people drop champagne glasses that shatter on the floor because they're just blown away by my presence. Like, oh my god, do you know who that is?
And what I find interesting about that is that in one of Charlie's old videos in 2015, he says that he wants everybody to know his name.
I want everyone to know my name.
What is this? What's this point that's being made right now? Literally, Nick, I remember that. He was just constantly saying, who is this guy, as a way to be like, who is this guy? Frick this guy. Like, and whatever, do your thing. It was funny, but what's the point you're trying to make here? Well, I'm not understanding. That he wants people to know who he is? Are you trying to spin this weird narrative that like he's offended by it? Nick was just being a little obnoxious. He was playing up the character. Who is this guy? I don't know this guy. Even like you probably do know who he is. Like I'll say who is this guy, even to really popular content creators like I have 2 million, because people don't really know who these people are. But I won't constantly reinforce it in a way where it's like, who are you? Like as a way to be like diminishing. So that was the whole point.
I want my name to be remembered. I want to be remembered.
Whoa, he's doing internet blackface, dude. Cancel this guy.
Is someone who made a positive impact on the entire world, and I want everyone on the planet to know who I am. I don't care if they know me by critical or by my real name, Charlie. It doesn't matter to me. I just really want to be a part of something big that helps the world, that fixes it, to just make it better.
So yeah, his reasons behind wanting people to know his name are pretty wholesome. He wants to be known for making a difference. And he was making somewhat of...
I don't really care if I'm known that much. I just want to make money. Like, I like the content I make, and I mean what I'm saying. But I'd rather have like less fans and decent money than like more fans, you know? This shit's fucking... Fame is cringe, bro. Fame is cringe. Write that on a poster. Fame is cringe.
Difference there back in the day. In 2016, he was donating...
What do you mean by toasting? Like, so like I'm a diabetic and I take medication and I try to like eat better and do my shit. It's a little difficult, but I've been doing decently well. I don't know what it is. I think that sometimes it's triggered by... I don't really know what it is. Sometimes if I eat too much cholesterol, like if I have shrimp, I have that issue. If I eat too much sugar, I have that issue. It's just my body telling me to stop. People don't understand this, but like fat people, especially that are unhealthy, will get body responses that are like, this is not good. You need to stop doing this. That's what it comes down to.
All of his ad revenue to charities, but he did eventually stop that because he found out that some of the charities that he donated to were scams. So it is a shame that at some point along the line, he lost that about himself. Him wanting everyone to know his name for good reasons is seemingly not there anymore. Especially...
Why? Because he's talking about internet drama? I'm going to assume that Charlie wanted people to know... Like, I've seen it before. He does like charity, which is cool. Like, that's cool. He does charity stuff. Like, you don't have to do a job that makes the world a better place. I don't think that Moistcritikal's job makes the world a worse place. But if you can use that money to try to make the world a better place, right? Like if you could work at like fucking, you know, McDonald's and you donate money to homeless people, then you're making the world a better place. Even I guess, you know, even though you're killing people at McDonald's, but that's not your fault. You're just working there. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about here? This is like a really weird morally. This is like weird. This is a weird point. What the fuck?
When it seems like he doesn't want to help somebody who he thinks needs help. Something that...
What could you possibly do to help Nick Ocado? He has all the resources available. He doesn't want help. He wants to continuously, like, he's feeding into all the hatred to make as much money as possible. Like, you really can't help somebody who is generally, I would say, kind of like a food addict.
Charlie repeats throughout his videos on Nick is that it is very sad what Nick is doing.
It's
sure.
just really sad. It has been an extremely sad thing to see. And the whole thing is just weird and just sad now. It's just upsetting to see. It's just sad to see.
So yeah, for somebody who finds Nick's situation so sad, he really doesn't seem too concerned about helping him. Nick would probably get more help from a Shane Dawson docuseries than...
What do you think he should do to help? This is the problem. And this is it's the same thing as when people say such and such needs to take accountability. Such and such needs to do this. What does that look like to you? What do you think Moistcritikal could do? Because you probably haven't really thought about it. You know, what is it that he should be doing to help Nick? You probably don't really have an answer, you know?
Than what Charlie is doing for him, and that is really saying something. And one last thing that I want to add to that is that a YouTuber who was a fan of Charlie made a video criticizing the YouTuber Pastel Bell for spreading misinformation about Eugenia Cooney.
Such a more like accurate, like truthful way.
Eugenia Cooney is referring to conspiracies and lies that creators like Pastel Bell have pushed.
And then accuses Pastel Bell of pretending to care about Eugenia.
I'd have more respect for her if she was openly insulting Eugenia. Instead, she pretends like she cares.
Which is pretty much an identical situation to the Charlie and Nick situation. Charlie is spreading misinformation about Nick, and then is also pretending to care. And this guy is totally aware that a double standard exists.
I feel like it's probably a little different. Listen, I don't know the video you're referencing. I want to say it's probably a little different from the people who are like relentlessly harassing Eugenia Cooney for conspiracy theories that like her fucking mom is taking advantage of her or whatever crazy shit that they come up with, versus making an oopsie when it comes to like Nick Ocado. Like I just don't think that they're really comparable. I mean, what was the issue with Nick Ocado? Because he's fat and dying and he's eating really unhealthily. And that Nick said that his ribs broke partially because of his weight. And then he said, no, that's not what happened after Moistcritikal just reinforced what he had said. Like, right? Like, what's going on here? The arena. Oh, I don't want to do this fucking arena.
When it comes to Charlie, because he made a video about Charlie and it got age restricted, and so did a whole bunch of other people. But you know which video didn't get age restricted? The original video that Charlie uploaded that everybody was using the footage from.
In fact, many fan compilations of Critical are age restricted when the original videos are not. I understand the bigger you are on YouTube, the more leniency you get. I just wish it wasn't so arbitrary.
So in some capacity, this guy has been affected by the double standard around Charlie, but will more than happily continue to feed into it. Okay, so finally...
Well, Charlie's not making that double standard. It's more of a criticism on YouTube, but okay.
Moving on from that, another thing that I want to bring up that Charlie said in Nick's video that he totally just makes up out of thin air is that Nick eats every single thing in his mukbangs.
He has tons and tons of food from different places, and it's not clickbait. He really eats all of that food. Very rarely does he not finish his plate. He usually finishes it or gets very close to it. Almost nothing goes to waste. It goes right into Nikado Avocado's gut.
And this is Nick's reaction to that.
He really eats all of that food. Very rarely does he not finish his plate.
It doesn't matter if you think it's healthy. It doesn't matter if you think it's the healthiest thing. It doesn't matter what you think. At the end of the day, you're telling people that I'm eating everything that they see on the screen. And that's inaccurate. It's not even about the food. It's really not. I
could have swore he does. He just might save some for later. Am I wrong about that?
eat. That's the #1 criticism I get, actually, from the mukbang world, which comes from Asia, by the way, and they're obsessed with watching people scarf it all down, every last drop. That was my #1 critique for years. Nick doesn't finish his food. Nick doesn't finish his food. I don't.
And yeah, Nick is right. He doesn't eat as much as Charlie thinks. In a mukbang that Nick made.
He certainly does. He's not trying to be rude, but you look at him. Okay.
Unfiltered side of these videos, click
made before Charlie made his video, Nick points out that he only ate 8 pieces of pizza out of 8 whole pizzas.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That is a lot of pizza. That's still a lot. Okay, whatever.
5, 6, 7, 8. So I had 1 pizza and a slice, 1 whole pizza plus 1, plus half a cheese calzone. That's not bad. It's less than 2,000 calories.
Charlie actually shows his specific.
That's a lot of fucking food. What are you talking about? That's not that bad. That's horrible.
Video in his own video, and he even shows that he scrolled to the end of the video.
This definitely looks cheesier. This one.
So Charlie saw with his very own eyes that Nick had plenty of food left over at the end of his video.
Charlie.
He clearly had.
You're a real piece of shit, motherfucker.
Eaten everything then. He may eat the rest of that food off camera, but we just don't know that. But for Charlie to make such a bold declaration...
I think we should kill Moistcritikal, frankly. I feel like some of these just don't, like, none of this really matters. A lot of these don't really matter that much. But okay, I guess he was inaccurate about that. definitely won't pick this guy.
Nick eats every last bit of food that he presents in his mukbangs is just a complete misrepresentation. And the closest thing to Charlie addressing this in his follow-up video to Nick is him saying that it's too sad for him to get to the end of one of Nick's mukbangs.
I've tried to keep up with his videos recently to make sure I get the full story, but for me it is very hard to sit through a full mukbang from him because it's just sad to see. I'll just be straight up honest. It's hard for me to watch all of them, so sometimes I'll go to Twitter to read threads about Nikado Avocado.
But I mean, we obviously saw him scroll to the end of one of Nick's videos, so Charlie has seen the end of one of Nick's videos. So give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe that was just a one-time thing that he didn't really pay much attention to. So if Charlie really does have no recollection of seeing the end of one of Nick's mukbangs, then there's still the question of why completely make something up out of thin air then.
I mean, listen, it's probably not a bad question about that. It seems like he doesn't finish his food. It's one of those weird things where as you're watching through the video, though, you get like the sense that a lot of these are very pearl clutchy, and aren't like reasonable criticisms. And so then you see one that I guess is decently reasonable, but it's like it's been collected into a bunch of like dumb arguments, and it's like, okay, like how much do we care, you know? But okay.
Why would you say that, Charlie? Why would you jump to that conclusion? It can't be to do with his weight because you said a couple of times in your follow-up video that it has nothing to do with his weight.
It doesn't have to do with his weight. I'm not targeting Nikado Avocado because of his weight or anything.
So why would you confidently say that Nick eats every last bit of food on his plate and then gets the restaurant to pour grease into a cup for him to drink?
Almost every day.
I think he might have said that.
He has done mukbangs like this, where he's eating 6 pizzas, 8 pizzas. He'll get like fucking McDonald's and he'll order everything.
Bro, this is making me want McDonald's. Fuck.
The menu and then ask if they can just tilt the grill over to get a little extra grease in a cup for him to drink on camera.
Charlie also says that
he might actually do that. I don't know. I wouldn't doubt it.
It's clear that Nick misunderstood his original video.
It's clear immediately that Nick misunderstood what I was saying in my video.
At the start of Nick's response video to Charlie's original video, he mentions some of the kinds of hate comments that he received because of Charlie's video.
Until I was taking a nap. And my phone goes ring-a-ling-ling-ling-ling. I'm being attacked for my weight, for my appearance.
Well, so the reason he can't sleep is because he has this fucking ringer on. Turn off your ringer. Turn off your notifications. I don't have my notifications on for anything I get. What?
Apparently, I'm encouraging
people. Or not for like any content stuff.
To eat unwell? Excuse me!
And to that, Charlie says that he never said anything like that.
I never said anything like that. I never said that he's setting some kind of example for people to follow.
I don't know if Charlie...
Hey, listen, all I'm saying is I'm getting hungry. I want fast food now because of you, Nicholas. Okay, you're ruining my life, Nick. You're ruining my fucking life, bro.
Missed it, or he's deliberately ignoring the fact that Nick said he received notifications on his phone where he was being attacked. Not long after that, he said that he had only watched a little bit of the video.
And I watched a little bit of this video. We're gonna react to this whole video, actually.
So Nick never said that Charlie said those things like Charlie was taking it. Nick couldn't have even known what Charlie had said in the video because he said he had only watched a little bit of Charlie's video at that point. He was just saying that he had received notifications from Charlie's fans, and those were the kinds of messages he was receiving. Also, he talks about the notifications on his phone later on in the video, so he was definitely referring to comments from Charlie's fans, not Charlie directly.
I have my phone on silent. It has been blowing up for hours. People calling me fat, people saying that I'm dumb, people saying, oh my gosh, you're eating yourself.
So Charlie may think that Nick misunderstood the video, but of course he's going to think that Charlie made a negative video about him if he's receiving comments like that, which, considering the insulting jokes that Charlie made about Nick, I'd say his video was more on the negative side. But I think it's fair for Charlie to say that Nick misunderstood his video based on the comments that he was receiving because of Charlie. Of course, Nick is going to be a little standoffish based on the comments that he was receiving. And it's very likely that if Nick hadn't received hate comments from Charlie's fans, his response would have been completely different. In 2020, James Marriott and a bunch of other British YouTubers reacted to Nick's OnlyFans, and they made fun of him. They made fun of his body. But Nick still had a pretty reasonable response to their reaction video.
It wasn't that bad. He certainly. Listen, he gives you your money's worth. That's all I'm saying. He definitely gives you your money's worth. All right, you can't give the. He spreads everything. He spreads the whole thing. He gives you all the nitty gritty. Bro. It is fucking crazy. This guy. You got to give him that. You get an A for commitment, a C for commitment. I don't know. So I'll tell you that. It's crazy though. Wow, his damage is incredible.
And I think that was because he was receiving messages from people saying, you gotta watch this video.
Again, people have been sending me clips like, you gotta see this.
Not hate comments. These British YouTubers' fan bases weren't harassing Nick beforehand.
Okay.
But I'm sure if they were, Nick's response would have been very different. Similar to his reaction.
Well, listen, that's fair. Here, part of that's kind of fair. I wouldn't put too much on Moist, but I will say that fan bases can be very toxic. And, especially when I was on TikTok, I had a lot of youngsters. On there, and some of them can take what you say and use it to be hateful on people, and there probably should be maybe a little bit more that Moist could do, I suppose, if this is like a regular thing, because sometimes young men can be obnoxious. I've been there, you know, and it's not just young men, but in this case, it would be, you know, and so yeah, I don't know exactly what he could do about it, but you know, maybe he could do a little more. It's possible.
To Charlie. So yeah, this just ties back to Charlie needing to be more responsible with what he puts out there and how he prefaces his videos, because no matter what kind of content he makes, his fans will still go and attack the subject of his videos. So if Charlie thinks that Nick misunderstood his video, it's kind of his fault. Another thing that Charlie does in his original video and his follow-up video is criticize Nick for promoting his merch and his Patreon.
And he's usually peddling some merch, so the shirts you see him wear, he immediately pins in a comment for you to buy them. It also doesn't really sit right to me that in this response video, he puts multiple advertisements for like going to his Patreon and stuff like that.
Bro, Nick is crazy. He will constantly plug, go to your... He's all like, it's not even like clever. Like he just throws in like a go to my Patreon. Like that's pretty much exactly what it is every time. It's kind of funny. It's so jarring too. But yeah, he does do that.
It just shows that he doesn't really take any of it seriously. It feels like this response was just made to capitalize off drama clicks.
And this is something that Nick does in pretty much all of his videos. He wasn't promoting his Patreon just because he knew that that video was going to get lots of views. He literally just does it in all of his videos. And I once remember...
it came off a little bit as like feeding into the hatred for like, you know, for a response. I think he's done that before with other people. A little bit of a character, but maybe.
Also making
fun of get that bag, baby.
To hit the 8 or the 10 minute mark in their videos so that they can get more AdSense revenue.
Which is why they're always just like fucking stalling, constantly like scratching at their neck, repeating themselves, just trying to inch their way and army crawl over that threshold of 8 or 10 minutes.
And I also know that Charlie has said before that he only makes YouTube videos and does online content for fun.
Everything I do online is just for fun. I don't care about the money side of things.
And it is awesome that
like, I mean, that's obviously, like, I'm sure... Listen, you can say that once you're making a good amount of money, you know what I mean? I mean, there's obviously a motivator for making money on there, so...
is able to do it just for fun. I hope to get to that point at one point, but a lot of people can't do it for fun. They need to do it as a job.
Yeah, exactly, and Nick has to pay a lot of money in medical expenses because he's so obese. So, all right, Charlie, this is your thin privilege, which, as we just saw, is rooted in racism. So maybe you can check your thin racism privilege and actually check yourself before you wrecked yourself. Okay? Because right now you are being ableist to fat bodies based on historical racism to people of color because the BMI scale wasn't made for those people of color. So you're a racist person, Charlie. I like that.
To get money because they need to survive. Not everybody gets the luxury of being able to do it for fun. So people need to make money maybe through their Patreon or their merch to get by. He doesn't, and that is amazing, but I don't think it's fair for him to be criticizing other people for doing that. And it's kind of shocking that he's taking this kind of stance because in 2015 he made a video where he talked about being jobless at the time. So he's obviously come a long way from...
What I will say is, like, he's come a long way. I will say that, like, something from, like, fucking 10 years earlier, or whatever, or 8 years, you're obviously going to change quite a bit. If you didn't, that would be worrisome. But okay.
2015 when he was jobless.
And I just couldn't find a job, still can't find a job.
So he knows the struggle of needing money, but I guess he doesn't anymore. Loser. Subscribe to my Patreon, by the way. Also, Charlie says that his criticisms would be the same if Nick was skinny.
And like I said, if he was skinny and still doing this exact content the exact same way, my criticisms would remain exactly the same.
Probably not. Probably not. I'm not saying that in like an antagonistic, like rude way, but it's one of those things where like the only reason that we like look at like there's multiple people. Does this guy not hit the thing? Okay. The reason that Nick gets so much like if he was a skinny guy doing mukbangs, they wouldn't have the same character. They wouldn't have the same upplay, and there wouldn't be the same like criticism on them. Because like whether it's active or passive, like you look at like, Nick and you're like, oh, he's like it's part of the equation. He probably would not in like an active way, but he probably wouldn't be talking about Nick if it wasn't for his obesity. I don't think it's an active thing. He's like, I hate fat people. Time to dunk. But you know, I just don't think that's true. But okay.
Who knows if this is the truth? But I don't see him making any other videos on any other mukbangers who eat just as much and just as frequently as Nick. So I honestly don't think that's the truth, especially when he made that point about Nick going from one body type to another. Like, I thought this had nothing to do with his weight. Also, he says the point of his video is to show how his audience is reinforcing his bad habit of eating.
It's the audience's fault for this. They created what Nikocado Avocado has become.
I guess, but Nick has agency over himself. He could simply not do this. He could probably still do pretty well financially, like, you know, going on like a path of eating better and being healthier and like making like different types of vlogs, and he wouldn't make the same views, but it would just be less toxic. It's like, I mean, like the audience reinforces it, but like at the end of the day, you're taking away autonomy from Nick himself. He's still his own person.
I was saying his viewers are enabling him to keep doing some of this content. Like, that's enabling. That's the very definition of enabling. It's enabling a bad habit.
But he said that he has kept up with Nick over the years.
I am very familiar with him. I've watched his content for a while. I've watched the transformation.
So doesn't that mean he's been supporting him by giving him views, along with all of the other people who he's calling enablers? Also, he contradicts this point around Nick's audience reinforcing his eating in his follow-up video. As I mentioned earlier, in his follow-up video, he says that Nick has an eating disorder. So is he eating all of this food for views, like the title of his video suggests, or is he eating it because he has an eating disorder?
I don't think that matters. I feel like that would be like if I pointed out somebody was like really skinny and they had an eating disorder, but they were a model, and I was like, well, do they have an eating disorder, or are they just doing it for views as a model? It's like these two things they don't have to be mutually exclusive concepts here. Like, he can have an eating disorder where he's eating too much while also using it as part of his job. That would reinforce maintaining his eating disorder in the same way like a model would have that like relationship with food. So it's not really the dunk you think it is.
Because if you truly believe that it is an eating disorder, maybe cut him some slack, maybe actually offer some help. And I will say that Nick does sometimes misunderstand what Charlie says as well. Who knows if this is done deliberately or not, but Charlie said that Nick's viewers leave a fat like on his video.
Even on the one I showed you, that's still like 4,000 likes, so there are 4,000 people dropping a fat like.
And Nick took this as Charlie calling his viewers fat.
Dropping a fat like. Oh, so now we're gonna make fun of my viewers' weights. Okay.
And Charlie,
I feel like Nick is probably not being serious, but okay.
Charlie says that some of the things that Nick does are revolting.
Making some of the most revolting noises I've heard in quite some time.
But Nick took this as Charlie calling him revolting.
I haven't said anything that you're revolting and you're disgusting. Do you realize the amount of I woke up to?
So I can totally understand that misunderstandings can happen. But at the end of the day, Charlie made completely false things up out of thin air about Nick and Def Noodles, and based big parts of his videos on false things. And I don't think it's a very fair double standard that Charlie can spread misinformation left, right, and center and not be expected to improve whatsoever. There are so many YouTubers who do so much research for their videos, but will still get criticized for not doing enough research. So it is frustrating when Charlie continues to do it and isn't expected to grow or improve. And look, at the end of the day, I truly
why do you think that? Like, I don't understand. I don't know. But okay. It seems like a little bit disproportionate, but all right. Wow, this guy's getting fucking turned up. Holy fuck. The damage here is incredibly bad. Holy fuck me in the ass, bro. Holy fuck. I hate playing my monk sometimes for like tanking. How is this happening? How did we just wipe on this? This doesn't even make fucking sense to me. What the fuck? Oh my god.
I don't believe that Charlie just makes up information out of nowhere and spreads it as a way to cause harm or with ill intent. From what the overwhelming consensus is on the internet, he seems to be a great guy and has provided entertainment for so many people. But I just wish that he was a little more careful with his commentary content, because even though he may not be doing it to cause harm, it does cause harm to the content creators that he's spreading false information about. Plus, because he is such a big content creator, it's kind of setting a precedent that that sort of thing is okay. And also, I just want to say that I know I don't have perfect videos by any means. I can admit that there was a time when I was making some pretty sloppy videos.
Well, there's also something to be said that like there is actually a little bit of a privilege being a smaller creator, honestly, like where people aren't noticing you as much, so they're not criticizing you as much, or you know, the smaller you are, the less of a chance that you're in somebody else's sphere. When you enter other people's spheres, that's when they start being like hypercritical of you. So like you probably are speaking worse than you think. You're just unaware of it because you're not getting audience feedback from it. But okay.
To an extent, I can understand where Charlie is coming from. In the past, I've drawn some conclusions based on some pretty weak things, but I have also completely moved on from doing that sort of thing. That was like my first wave of content. I'm like 2 eras moved on from that. But yeah, even though I've been guilty of doing that sort of thing in the past, I certainly haven't ever just made something up out of thin air that was based off of nothing other than my own assumptions. Also, I just want to give a shout out to the YouTuber and dietitian Abby Sharp. She made a very informative and respectful video on Nikocado Avocado. In her video, she involves the opinions of an eating disorder dietitian and a gut health dietitian. It's a
what did she cut? She talks to an eating disorder dietitian. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but it sounds like maybe they're reinforcing that he might have some kind of an eating disorder. I mean, maybe I'm assuming too much, but isn't that what we criticized Moist for saying? I don't know. Okay.
It's a good video and it helps you understand things from Nick's perspective a little bit more. The link to that video will be in the description box below. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to drink water, be nice to animals. Let's take a moment of silence for everyone who has to deal with Karens.
In their ass.
And I'll see you.
You're a little bit of the Karen in this case. You're kind of like, Karens are people who, a lot of times Karens are like a little bit correct about what's happening, but they're massively disproportionate in their response. Like when a kid's skateboarding and it's like, it says no fucking skateboarding in here, and they start screaming. You know, so just keep that in mind, brother. You are the Karen.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.